So, have you ever felt like people think you're crazy? I sure have. In fact, that was how I was going to start this video was everybody thought I was crazy. So, I've been reflecting a lot lately on my journey to this point because it's been actually about 10 years almost to the day since my full circle, journey with personal development and my business following my dreams, my soul has really it's been a 10-year cycle. So 10 years ago, this month, I don't remember the exact date, but like this week sometime, my husband and I took a like month-long trip to New Zealand and to Fiji. And this was like it was our belated honeymoon. We actually got married in 2008, so it was, you know, um, 7, 8 years after our actual wedding. But I called it our honeymoon because we had never really done anything. We stayed at a hotel locally, and this was the biggest trip that I'd ever done. Like internationally, I had gone to, like Mexico and stuff before, but never anything like this. So when, we took this trip, it was a big deal. And I remember at the time, I was just starting to really like dip my toes into the personal development space. I had just started really like understanding what a digital nomad was and the idea of remote work. Wasn't common back then. It was still new and there was still a lot of like scams out there, which I mean, I guess there still is. So it didn't really feel real up until that point. And I don't remember actually. Oh, I do remember how I found this woman. I had downloaded this ebook, which I read on the plane, from a woman who, as I was searching for places to stay in Fiji, I had found her because she was an influencer. She was a travel blogger, and had a remote digital marketing company, and she was living the life that I wanted. She was sorry, I was doing research for the resort that we ended up staying at in Fiji, and she had stayed there and like wrote an article and like recorded some videos about the resort, promoting it. I'm sure that she got to stay there for free in exchange and blah 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 of like being a travel influencer, right? So I remember like hearing about this and like almost like stalking her. And then I found out that she had this ebook. So I downloaded the ebook. I bought it actually. I think it was like $7. And I read it. I remember reading it on the plane to New Zealand, and just like at that point deciding like, fuck, this is what I want. Like, this is the life that I want. And, as we are traveling to New Zealand and Fiji, I had taken a month off of work, which I had never done before. And I literally like deleted the app for my email from my phone. I had auto forwarded everything to my one of my employees. I was the director of sales and marketing, so one of the sales managers, to the point where I wasn't even keeping copies of the emails in my inbox, because I didn't want to see them. If I got the itch to go look. So like I literally had completely unplugged and shut things off and really immersed myself in this experience. So as I'm reading this ebook and I'm living this life, we're traveling, just like why can't I do this, right? Like why can't I live this life? And at the time I again had a job working for it was a hotel and conference center, but it was owned by a Fortune 500 company. And I had good benefits for being in the hospitality space. I had quite a bit of vacation time, which still wasn't the best, but I had more than a lot of people in that industry, and it just never felt really fully satisfying. It's like I go to work, I get there probably around like 7:30 most days, 7:30, 8 a.m. And I'm there until somewhere between 5 and 7 p.m. And then I come home and we eat, we watch TV, go to sleep, rinse, repeat, do the same thing over again. And it's not that I like hated my job. I was treated quite well, but it wasn't fulfilling. I had a corner office. I was, in the downtown. Uh, like it was a bougie gig, and it was what I thought I wanted for my whole career was something like this. And I got there and I realized like, I'm not actually really that happy in my life. And I, remember thinking, going back actually a year or two before this, I think it was a year before. I don't remember the exact date, but I remember going back and or not going back, but I remember my aunt had passed away and we weren't super close. My mom was really close to her and she had passed away unexpectedly. And she and my uncle, like they had their cabin up north on the lake. That was where they had planned to retire. They wanted to live, they had this whole life planned out. And I think like at the time she was maybe like early to mid 50s. Um, and they had this whole plan for their life. And then just one day, all the plans were gone. Like she was gone. She wasn't sick, like it wasn't anything that she could have, well, that she knew was going to happen, and it's just bam. And I remember that hitting me really hard, because the thought of living, and again I was 37 at this time, I think, the time, you know thinking about living the next like 30 years of my life or more before I would be able to live my life, quit my job, and actually retire. It just felt like so incongruent with what I felt inside and what I wanted. And then I saw this happen to my aunt and uncle, and just like, I don't want that. Like, I don't know. I could be gone tomorrow. And am I at the end of the day going to be happy that I have the corner office and the bougie job that even though I'm not super happy at, like on paper looks really good. And, a lot of people would be really grateful for this. And I was grateful for it. Do I want that? And then on 30 years, I'll get to live my dream life, or why the fuck don't I want to live it now? And then again, as I'm reading this ebook on our way to New Zealand, these are the things that are going through my head. So we go on this trip and come back, after a month away. And upon returning, I don't remember the exact conversation with my husband, but I was just like, I want something different. I wanted a different life. Like, why can't we live that life now? Why can't we enjoy our life now? I mean, why can't we pick up and move? And when we were in New Zealand, we were also visiting a friend of ours who was from the States and had moved abroad. She lived first in Singapore and then moved to New Zealand. I'm like, she did it. So many people do these things. Why can't we live a different life? Because we had a decent house, we had decent cars, I had a good job. My husband had a decent job too, and his, like they really took care of him there, and we have good parents. We didn't have a lot to really complain about. So part of me felt like I shouldn't want more than this, but at the same time, in my soul, I knew that I was meant for something different. I knew that this was not the life that I was meant to be living. And every day that I had to go into to that job, it was like this soul suck. So, I remember coming back and having these conversations, and actually started having them with some friends who, um, you know, we're kind of on board with the same line of thinking. And I remember telling my husband, like, I want something different. And at the time, Caribbean Life, House Hunters International were big on HGTV. So I remember just like watching these shows and seeing people move different places and like doing all this research. And then somehow, there was lots that led to this, and lots of research, lots of places, but landed on the U.S. Virgin Islands, and specifically the island of St. Croix. And just something about it felt like, okay, like this is it. This is it. And so I don't even know how I got my husband on board, if I'm being totally honest, because this wasn't his dream, it was mine. But he jumped on board with me and said, okay, if this is what you want, we'll do it. And at the time we had, I think, like maybe 10 or $15,000 in the bank, which for us was the most we'd ever had saved ever. Um, and like we have money, we can buy a car, we can live for several months while we start a business. If we need to get a job, we can get a job. I remember I actually started the first business, my event planning company, before we even moved there. And my husband started one about a month after we got there. And so we said, okay, fuck it, let's do it. And people in our life thought we were crazy. And not only did we decide to move, actually, three of our friends decided to move with us, and we decided to do this sight unseen. We had never been to the Virgin Islands, had never been to the Caribbean, actually. And just like, we're going to do this, we're going to, quit our jobs. And in fact, I actually did try to keep my job and asked if I could work remotely. And my boss was on board, but I did work for a larger Fortune 500 company. And at the time, ironically now, a lot of the positions are remote, but back then remote work wasn't really a thing, and they weren't on board with it. So I said, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. So I did end up leaving my job as well, and we moved to the US Virgin Islands. Um, and it was fucking scary. And I remember telling our families about this. I remember telling our parents, and both of our moms cried, and they tried to convince us to not go, because the thing is I wasn't like my family, and I don't say that in a bad way. I love my family, but I was always kind of the black sheep. I was always the one that was a little crazy, a little different. I didn't, fall in line with all the things that I was supposed to do. And even when I was doing them, and again, I had a decent life and whatever, but it was still non-traditional. We actually lived in um, almost like a duplex type big house on like 20 acres, and there was two houses like connected to each other. And we lived there with friends. So again, non-traditional. And had really had these non-traditional parts of me, but for all intents and purposes, on paper, when people looked at like me and at my life, it fit into the box, right? And that's what our parents had done, and what they had taught us that we were supposed to be working towards as well, and that we should be happy with this life that we built. So when we said we weren't, and that we were going to be moving and leaving, it wasn't really accepted easily. And our parents did eventually get on board, and they threw us some going away parties and all of the things. But it was a really hard time, because trying to, explain this to people who didn't get it, it almost made me want to change my mind. Because it's just like, well, they've had more experience with this, that, or the other thing, or they know better, or I should listen. But again, it was just like my soul knew that this wasn't actually for me. And this was one of my first experiences with really like that understanding of like, my body knows that this is not the right path. And even though what I want to do is fucking risky as fuck, like I know I've got this. I know that it's going to work out some way, somehow. And I'll record more videos. It was not sunshine and rainbows, I will tell you, but we did it, and we took the risk, and it did work out, and it's led me to so many more wonderful things, which I would be talking for hours if I talked about all of that. So I will do that, but it is the reason that I'm sitting here right now, because we made that move back then. It's the reason that I've, in the last 6 years, made close to $1 million in cash in my business. And I actually did the math recently. I think I've actually surpassed with like the sales numbers, not full cash received. I think I've actually surpassed that number, or will in the next month or so, the $1 million mark in my business, which may for some people not seem like that big of a deal. Sorry, just getting over a little sickness here. But for me, like, I actually also did the math in the 15 years like before that. I didn't even come like I guess I can't say I didn't come close, but I made less in like 15 years of my career than I've made in the last six, working for myself. And there's a gap there, as you can see. Like I'm saying six because 2019 is really when I went full in on myself and my business, because the first few years we started businesses, but I did end up having to get a job, and we actually left the islands at one point to come back to the States because we got nervous, we got scared financially, and we followed that. But all of those experiences are what have led me here to where I am right now. And, looking back, the life that I've built, like it's unrecognizable to where I was 10 years ago when we took that trip to New Zealand and Fiji. At the time, I mean, I thought, this is it. I'm going to take this one trip, and who knows how long it'll be before I could take a trip like this again. And I'm saying this on the tail end of just like a month ago, I got back from a little over a month, spending a month in Bali, hosting an international retreat. People came from around the world, seven people from five countries around the world that came to work with me and to meet each other in another country. And I cannot tell you how I would not have believed like I would not have believed the things that I have done in my life. I wouldn't believe that we were digital nomads, that we lived in a camper, that we moved to the Caribbean, that we moved to Arizona, that, we had this beautiful life since I made this choice. And it all came as a result of taking a really big fucking risk. And that risk meaning like we walked away from, on paper, the American dream, the two jobs, the house, the cars. We didn't have the kids. We had the fur babies, but everything else. And many people would have loved that life that we have, still would. And that's great. And it was a great life, but it wasn't what I actually wanted. And I knew that in my soul. And that's why when our parents were pushing back and questioning it, it's just like, I know, I hear you, but I can't listen. I need to go forward. And, reflecting back on this journey and this story, it's so parallel to, it's the same thing with business. And I've gone through similar things in my business with risks and being afraid to take risks, or taking risks and having taking the risk and like going all in on myself and having it turn out really well, or when I contract and go into fear, having it not work out as much as I want it to. But when I've reflected back on this journey of the last 10 years, everything amazing that has happened in my life, all of the big milestones, the first 10K month, the first 20K, 30K, 50K, all of these came as a result of me trusting myself, as a result of me taking these risks, of a result of me, of choosing my soul, of what I knew, even though I didn't even know what I wanted or how it was going to turn out, just trusting and moving forward because I knew it was going to lead me down the path of where I needed to go. And the only time that has not worked for me, and I've definitely like seen the duality in this, especially the last couple of years, is when I have gotten too comfortable, when I have contracted, I've gone back into like, well, what I've built is pretty good, and I don't want to rock that boat. So I stopped taking risks. And what do you think happened? Like things didn't work out the way I wanted to. Things would crumble. And I'm not saying, go all in and take risks, because I've also taken risks and I've taken them from a disempowered state, and that's a completely different result. But when you in your soul know that something is right for you or something is wrong and you need to follow this other path, when you're not listening, you're sending those signals to your body that like you don't trust yourself, that you're not good enough, that you can't do this thing. And I know that it's really like a really common thing. And I've felt it in my own business, like taking risk, in the like shifts that I've been making and the things that I talk about, the people that I work with, the things that I am doing in talking about more of the woo. And I do the quotes here because I don't really think it's that woo, but talking about some of the things that really light me up, like when I do those things, when I, moved to the Caribbean, when I've pulled back and allowed myself to just enjoy my life and not worked like crazy. That's like when I've made the most money. It's when I've had the best results, is when I've actually really anchored in to that space of self-trust. And, that conviction of some way, somehow, this is always working out, or this is working out for me. And the only time that hasn't actually been true is when I have pulled back out of that fear of what could happen, out of, the fear of like not feeling safe in whatever it was that I was doing, whether it was with money or something else. Um, and that's always been the case. But it's just like when I was in the fear of, but I don't want to walk away from this. I have this money, I've built this thing. In fact, it's actually worked out in very different ways, which still, some way, somehow, it's always worked out for me, because when I did that, when I contracted, things did start to crumble. My income started to plateau. Things didn't work out the way I wanted to, because I had to see, like, you have to actually trust yourself. You actually have to take the risk. You have to put yourself out there. You have to follow your soul, because when you're not doing that, eventually, like, either you're going to be fucking miserable, um, or things in your life are going to start to crumble, which will ultimately probably still make you miserable, right? So it's just like you can keep living the life that you're living, because on paper it might look good. It might feel like, oh, well, I should be grateful for this. And you should be. You should be grateful. And I am grateful for the life that I had, and the career, and all of the things. But I'm grateful that I also trusted myself enough to know that when it was time to make a change, regardless of the fact that our parents didn't agree with us, regardless that people thought we were crazy, regardless of the fact that we had never been to this island that we moved to, which, P.S., um, well, I'm not going to announce it yet, but I'm getting ready to announce something related to this too, um, which will be for you. So yeah, I wanted to come on and share this story, because I think that oftentimes what I see happen with highly, high achieving women, especially, but just people in general, but high achieving women, I'll say, is, we achieve, we hit these milestones, we do really good in our life, and we don't want to rock the boat, right? And we don't want people to judge us. We don't want people to question us. We don't want to ruin what we've already created. So we stay in our little safe bubble. And it's not for lack of being unable to, or like not being able to achieve the things that we want to, but it's because of the fear of what happens if I go against this? What happens if I walk away from this really successful career? What happens if I decide that I want to change my messaging and start talking to different people? Will I lose these people? Will I lose this money? What happens if I pick up and move my life and it doesn't work out? Will people judge me? Will they question me? Will I lose everything? And these are the questions that we have to face, but we also have to be willing to go into the unknown, to really truly get the things that we want. And you can't know exactly how it's going to turn out. And this, you know, need to stay in that space of safety. We think sometimes like, oh, I'm doing the smart thing, I'm doing the responsible thing, but really, are you? Because the smart thing, it might look good on paper, but if it's sucking your soul, if you're not happy with the life you're living, with who you're becoming, with how things are going for you, you have to ask yourself, can you sustain it this way? Is this how you want to live the rest of your life? Is this how you want your business to go? Is this how you want things to feel? And if the answer is truly, genuinely yes, just noticing my gray hairs here. um, then fine, follow that, because you need to follow your soul. But if what you're doing in your business, in your life, with how you're living it, if it's not working, it will catch up to you, and it will manifest in other ways. It'll show up in relationship issues and money issues, in your health, because I do fully believe in an integrative approach to our success and our happiness in our life. And like, inevitably, if you are fighting against your soul and the things that you want, it's doing damage irreparably, not irreparably, I guess, but it is doing damage within your body, within your relationships, so in different aspects of your life, until you actually give it the attention that you need. And I truly believe that the more we like go back to that unfiltered expression of who we were actually born to be, the more we peel back those layers that we've put on of the conditioning, of the fear, the more we come back to ourselves and the more we actually start to attract the life, the things, the money, the people, the opportunities, all of the things that we want. And I've had that proof over and over and over in my own life, and I've seen it in my clients' lives. It's why some of my clients have had their biggest months. Like I remember one client literally like did like 4 times her highest revenue or highest sales ever in our first month working together while she was on vacation for a month, not because she did anything more. In fact, she worked way less, but because she actually fucking trusted herself to do what she knew that she needed. She needed that time. She wanted that time with her family. And another client who made more in 1 month while on vacation for a week with her family, completely unplugged. She made more in that week than she had in the 6 months prior. And it's, these are just like little snippets, and it's not just about the money. Those are just the ones that are top of mind to me. But, when you actually follow what you're here to do, who you're here to be, what your soul is actually talking or saying to you, that's when the things that you want are going to actually appear. But you actually have to trust yourself, to love yourself, to have that conviction within yourself to go forward and trust that it's going to work out for you some way, somehow. And that is like what so many people are missing. And I think, I've had that in various facets in my life and my business, and sometimes I wobble on that. But when I don't wobble, like that is when everything happens. And that is why I'm so passionate about helping other people to truly have a business and a life that they fucking love, that lights them up, and having an amazing life and a business that's in support of that, because you shouldn't be forcing everything in your life into your business to just try to make money and be successful, because that's not why you're here. If you're still watching this video, that's absolutely not why you're here. You are here to have an amazing life, and the business is a part of that, but you're here to do the things that light you up. So whether that's moving to an island, whether that's doing a complete 180 in what you're doing in your business, whether it's walking away from your career that you've spent, 15, 20 years building, it doesn't matter. But if you are staying in a space where you are not happy in your life, in your business, with what you're doing, it will eat you up, I promise you. And I would love to support you through that. And it comes from you first choosing to live the unfiltered life, the unfiltered movement, because we are meant to actually enjoy our lives. We are meant to work less. We are meant to make a lot of money for being us. But it only begins when you actually choose to allow that to happen. And if that's what you're wanting to do this year, or any year really, it's 2026 now. But if that's what you're looking to do, my world is definitely the space for you. So reach out, send me a message. This is probably going to be on YouTube. So there'll be a link to my Facebook. You can message me on Facebook, and we can have a conversation about what that would look like to work together one-on-one. You can also join my free community, which there's going to be some changes with that, but that link should also be there, and that's over on Telegram. And it's more than just a community. I would say it's more like a free membership, and that is your space for you to actually come in and be all of you, to have the vulnerable shares, to have these types of conversations, to be all of you, and to really step into this next phase of your business, of your life, because you are meant to have it all. You are meant to be all of you. You can make a shitload of money, you can be highly successful, and you don't have to give that up, but you can actually have a life that you love at the same time. And I guarantee you that you will be so much happier if you actually allow yourself to follow that. So if that's calling to you, send me a message, or just go ahead and join me in the community, and you can communicate with me that way. But thank you so much for watching today's video. If you've liked this, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment if you feel so inclined. We'll talk to you very soon in the next video.